welcome back to the Real Wealth Podcast. I'm Mike Proctor, your host, here with Audra Donnell.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and it's so interesting with Leading Edge Financial Planning sponsoring the podcast and the thread. I think there's a common thread here.
Yeah.
And it's really lifestyle in nature, and so I'm excited to see where the podcast goes today. Here on Real Wealth Podcast, we seek to figure out how to live the best life possible at the time we have left. And so that incorporates the personal side of like lessons learned, growth that we've had, and then also the entrepreneurial side. And Audra brings both of those to the table today. And so tell us, Audra, a little bit about the thread and how that started and what that is.
Yeah. So the thread is a community for ambitious professional women. And right now we're based in Wichita. I say right now. We are based in Wichita, expanding to new markets soon. Okay. Is the plan. And our focus is leadership development. And we do that from a lens that focuses, on both personal and professional. So we believe that, you can't just hone your professional leadership skills and your management skills, but also you have to know the purpose behind, why you are leading and what you're doing and your strengths and what you bring to the table. So really totally a holistic approach to what we do too.
Awesome. And how long have you been doing that?
So I started the thread in August of 2020. So I had just moved back home after being gone for about 8 years and moved home first and foremost to be close to my family. We were raising 2 little boys on our own and decided it was time to get our community back and move back to Wichita. And the other reason is because I wanted to start the thread. So I had experienced a women's leadership program in Honolulu, Hawaii, where I was living before. And as soon as COVID hit, I just had this idea that I wanted to take the experience that I had that had really changed my life back to my hometown. So kind of perfect timing. The thread started officially in August of 2020.
Wow. Okay. And what's it look like today? I think you were mentioning the Kansas Leadership Center. No, it was a leadership thing though. What were you talking about?
So the thread is a leadership collective. So what we do
that is the thing. It's not, you're not operating through something else. You actually have a 6-month course.
Correct. Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So the thread is a community that offers a 6-month program to up to 30 women at a time. And so, yeah, we're our own entrepreneurial effort, and we do have, some conversations with KLC and love the work they're doing too, for sure. So there's a lot of collaboration and like-minded thinking there. But the thread is just for women and it stands all on its own.
So it is just for women. That's neat.
Yeah.
How does that work out? What are maybe some advantages that creates?
Yeah. So the reason it's focused for women is because there are certain challenges that we face based on our experiences. And again, like we're not grouping everyone together, but if you get a bunch of women in the room, there's so much power in just sharing our stories with each other and our experiences and what's working and what's not, that it's different than when you have a co-ed room. So that's the power that I found when I was in Honolulu. I had been in other markets through their leadership programs and some Stephen Covey work, and just been a student of leadership via books and podcasts, for much of my adult life. But when I got in this group of just women, something in me changed. I looked around at all the amazing things that these women were doing, and I was intimidated and kind of like, do I really belong here in this group? They're just such amazing women. And then was just totally able to show up completely and let my guard down. And somewhere in that group of 21 women back in Honolulu in 2018, I sort of changed my personal narrative and realized, I do have a seat at the table and I bring something that adds value to the group. And that gave me the courage to leave my full-time job that we had moved to Hawaii for and figure out what I wanted to do as an entrepreneur.
What were you doing in Hawaii?
So I have been in marketing and advertising my whole career, graduated from Wichita State. They've got an amazing integrated marketing communications program, and I worked in corporate marketing and then agency marketing most of my career. So I had moved to Hawaii to take a VP role at a small agency out there and run the state's largest job fair and do some other work. And it was, on paper, really, really great, but there was just something more that I wanted. And I think just reading up on your story and your work for other people and deciding, I want to do something a little bit different. Mm-hmm. You can probably relate to making that jump.
Yeah. Yeah. It's Yeah, it was interesting. We're talking through, and this isn't like an Enneagram podcast, but I'm really into the Enneagram.
I am too.
And so I'm trying to bring the team along to help them understand more about it. I'm like, as a type 1 wing 9,
Mhm.
I realize that a lot of times I'm really motivated when I get frustrated.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so I had some frustrations with our industry and some of the restrictions that were placed on me by virtue of where and how I was operating, and then this, I'm like, I don't even know how I'm gonna get to where I need to go, but I'm gonna do it. Like,
Yeah.
it's time to make this thing happen.
Well, two things from that. That's why I love the Enneagram, because unlike other tests, which do focus so much on more external or aptitude, Enneagram is all about where your motivation lies and when you're operating at a really healthy place versus when you're operating at a place that's not so healthy, because your strengths can also be your weaknesses. So I love that you connected the Enneagram to that. And for my Enneagram connection, I'm an 8, which is a challenger, wing 7, which is very social. So I just didn't want to work for other people anymore, right? I was just
Hmm.
wanting to do my own thing. I didn't even know what that was. So
Right.
my story was we had moved to Colorado for my job. We had moved to Hawaii for my career. And, a few years into it, I was pregnant with our second son and took 6 months to work myself out of the business and just said, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm going to do something. And it took a year to kind of figure out what that was, and just, freelanced while I stayed home mostly with my youngest, my second baby. And then at the right time, which for me was COVID and the decision to move back to our hometown, that the opportunity unfolded itself that I had been waiting for.
Hmm. Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, finding your way. And so what does health look like for you today? And this is kind of getting back to the living the best life possible with the time we have left. But yeah, what have you found helps you to be and stay healthy as a person?
Yeah. Well, I think as an entrepreneur, it's a whole different game, right? Than when you're in another profession, because the work never shuts off. Your mind's always going. So
Hmm.
you really have to take that ownership and control of, no one is going to take care of myself but me. No one's going to set the rules. No one's going to set the boundaries but myself. So, for me, I absolutely love what I do. And so work doesn't feel like work. I could do it all the time. So I set some boundaries with myself of, like, phone usage, for example. When our kids are home from school, I get to pick them up from school every day at 4. We put our phones up, until whenever. Usually our rule is until they're in bed. So that's sort of a healthy boundary that I have so that I can really focus on my family and my home life during that time.
Hmm.
Um, Also, I really control the narrative, right? So much of being healthy to me right now is controlling the thoughts and the stories that I tell myself, because the things that happen in my head produce feelings and that produces action. So, really just focusing on making sure every day my mind is where I want it to be in regards to my business or my family or any area of my life.
Yeah, a lot of control in your thoughts there.
Well, Enneagram 8, right? We're
What?
we're all about control.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, love controlling my thoughts.
I'm well attuned to that.
Okay. Do you work with some 8s or have some 8s in your life?
Used to.
How funny. But listen, when you are there's no bad number on the Enneagram, right? And it's like
Exactly.
when you're living healthy,
Exactly. Yeah.
you can let go of some of that external type control, right? And really focus on the real things that you can control, which is literally yourself, your
Hmm.
attitude, your perspective,
Yeah.
and be a real game changer.
Hmm.
But when you're unhealthy as an Enneagram 8, I mean, the walls go up, the control is just like predominant.
Mm. Reach. So how do you keep the walls down? That's a great point. How do you keep the walls down?
you know,
Because I'm sure there's a lot of people that deal with, like, there was something that happened, and it's just a lot easier if you keep a wall up, and you don't really have to let people get to know the real you. But I'm familiar that, hey, that's a real issue. But, like, how do you proactively stay connected, stay open, keep the wall out of the way so that relationships can actually flow. Because I'm sure that's really important as you're teaching leadership in the thread and connecting with other women. Really doesn't matter, but like, how do you keep that vulnerability on the table?
Yeah, that's a great question. And, I think it's so important for me, it's so important to be able to show up in any room and be my full self. So I can't do that if I'm worried about controlling what other people think of me, which you can't do that, right? That's not even a real thing. Just that's in your
What?
head. I know.
Oh,
Or controlling every part of, every interaction. So for me, just doing the work really means thinking about my goals and my intentions and then letting go. Just knowing that showing up with my best intentions is going to be all I can do, and the rest has to be left up to the universe. So, I mean, really, before any important conversation or meeting or even just spending time with my kids, like I truly just pray and try and show up the best I can and then let the chips fall where they may.
yeah.
And I do a lot of, I do a devotional every morning or a journaling exercise or always some sort of self-work reading in the
Hmm.
morning. So that's really important to me to set my day off in that way. But yeah, it's so important to show up vulnerably. It's like that's half of my business is just showing up and being like, here we are. We're going to do this together. I don't know exactly what the end result is going to be. So kind of letting go of that end result and just one step at a time, which, I mean, as entrepreneurs, it's like literally one step at a time. You have this big vision of where you want to go,
Yeah.
but you have to walk the first step first, right? And
Uh-huh.
you don't know like what that path is going to look like.
Yeah. Like for us today, we're doing a business valuation. We're going to start another business valuation engagement this afternoon, and then had a conversation this morning with a bookkeeper about propping up a bookkeeping business or function within our consulting side. So like, yeah, as an entrepreneur, like it can really change, just step by step. You don't really know exactly how you're going to get there, but you're like, we're going to get there.
Yeah.
And
You just have to have the faith.
and I would offer, be willing to do the inner work and
Yes.
stay on top of it, because like my struggle is, it's like, okay, I can see the vision, and if I just go for it, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to get there, and I'm just going to not do, like, my faith is super important to me, and so my connection to the leading that I experienced there has done well for me,
Mm-hmm.
and also just for my own inner peace. But like sometimes it's like, you can have a lot of action really quick, but if I'm doing that, I've had to get attuned to doing what you'd call there's maybe like good flesh, bad flesh kind of deal, where like if I'm operating out of my own effort, that's really different than if I'm operating out of kind of a freedom of being led, and in like kind of an inner peace, knowing of, okay, so now we're getting a little, like, for some people, out of a comfort zone,
Yeah.
but what I'm saying is, like, for me to be totally interconnected has been really key for me in what I do, and also how I grow the business. And and I don't have it all together, and I still have a lot of work to do. But
Oh, for
but
sure. Same.
I have noticed that it's so much better when I'm connected in that way, because I've been doing work, because I've been connecting spiritually, also head learning, and then integrating that into the team. So.
Yeah. And I totally agree. And I think, talking about some people getting out of their comfort zones, that's a big thing at the thread where, what I believe or what works for me isn't necessarily going to work for you. So I just want to be totally open to the way everyone is working on themselves. The point is to do the work and
Right.
figure out what that means to you and what that looks like. So I think that's great. And I can completely relate. I mean, I remember the first cohort of the thread that we launched. We're on cohort 3 right now. So the first group of women that came together in March of 2021, I mean, I was like, I have this vision. I'm going to execute it the best I can, but I just have to release it at this point, and just show up and be there, because I can take action all day long, but just action alone without doing that inner work of showing up as yourself as the best leader that you can be, but also knowing that none of us are there yet. None of us,
Mhm.
have
Yeah.
it all figured out.
Yeah, and there's all kinds of space for that. especially when you're self-aware and especially when you're willing to admit it.
Yes. Self-awareness, I think, is huge. And I will say with the thread, so this is a community that I've built, and I have other leaders come in and speak to the women. So it's not my curriculum. Just wanted to clarify that because I know you mentioned, showing up and leading these women, and I do get the honor and privilege to do that. But I also have a lot of support from the community and women who come in, and even men who come in and teach our groups.
Men teaching women?
I know, right?
How archaic is that?
Well, it doesn't happen very often. I'll have to admit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough. All right.
Yeah. But, I think also part of being healthy, in addition to really working on the stories I'm telling myself, is to choose to be present and choose to be joyful, even in the moments that are difficult. Because when I, just look at my life, and I'm sure you feel the same, it's like, I'm so grateful that it gets to look like this. And it's so easy to let that slip and start thinking like, oh my gosh, I already have to pick the kids up from school, or oh my gosh, this is so stressful. Like the revenue's all on me, and whatever.
Yeah.
So choosing just to really like stay present and be like, no, this is my beautiful life that I've been given and that I've built to look this way, and just choosing to be joyful for all the details, even the ones where we're tempted to be negative.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Gratitude, humility, all the good stuff.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
That is so encouraging to hear there's an 8-wing-7 out there in good health leading other women.
Okay, we may need to like talk offline about your
we don't.
8 issues.
Maybe we will. Maybe this is really great because you are helping. This isn't my therapy thing. Maybe it is today. Just for a moment.
It can be. Listen,
it's okay. It's all right.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's switch gears. So we talked a little bit about, so that was really good because leadership and growth and living the best life possible has a lot to do with what's going on the inside.
Mm.
It doesn't really matter what the outside looks like.
Yep.
Your life experience happens on the inside.
Yep.
So what's maybe been, maybe a great aha moment for you, or like a great learning experience as you've gone on this journey of you went into marketing, there was something missing, you launched the thread, you've got your family, your family here in Wichita, your I guess the grandparents for the kids, and now more support and connection. But what's been maybe a big stepping stone for you as far as when you've noticed you went through a period of growth in your life?
Oh my gosh. Well, when I got to what felt like the top of, what I wanted to get to in the marketing and advertising realm, I just was not satisfied. And, uprooting my family from a life that we loved in Colorado to move to Hawaii, which again, also amazing, but that was a big uprooting, right? The shipping pod that you have to, ship all of your stuff over in, it takes 6 weeks, and selling the house and moving, to the most remote island in the world, even though, it's still a part of the United States, but it is still the most geographically remote island. So I did all of that. I took this opportunity to be vice president at an ad agency. And I mean, honestly, it felt like failure. I did not like going into work every day. I took at the 6-month mark, I knew something was up. So I red flagged and had a conversation with the owner, and, we decided on a game plan, and I worked on that for the next 6 months, and it just wasn't happening. So it's like taking all those risks, getting to the top of where you think you want to be, and then realizing this isn't the right ladder to climb, or this isn't the right hill to stand on. So what felt like a huge failure, and I mean, leaving my job after having the second baby, and, being home with my son, and I'm so ambitious and career driven that I'm just telling you, like, this just felt like such a failure. But in that, doing the work, reading the books, getting healthy with exercise, putting good things into my body, that was the point where it's like I sort of hit maybe a professional low, even though it looked on paper like it was a professional high. It felt like a professional low because I'd worked my way up and then just didn't feel happy or purposeful or fulfilled. And then just taking that time and just being in that low and just not trying to climb out of it so quickly, just to climb out of it, right? Just to feel what that felt like.
Yeah.
And it was not a fun time, for me mentally, and just, what's my purpose? I followed this path and it wasn't the right one. Although again, no regrets, but just getting to that point.
And without that period, you may not have been forced into a space where you would have had to confront that, work through it,
Yep.
and become a better version of you.
Totally. And I'm so thankful for that. I'm really, truly thankful for that experience. But that was an experience and a learning where it definitely felt like I failed. And I just had to sit in that personal failure, even though, again, maybe on the outside, people wouldn't have looked at it as a failure, and figure out how to climb myself out of that. But doing that gave me confidence and self-trust and just, again, faith in myself, faith in the process. And then also I would say another real learning is for someone who is so growth-oriented and driven, learning to find contentment in exactly where I am while I'm also working towards my goals. That has been just the biggest, most beautiful learning, to just be like, everything is great here and I want to go there. Like just both and, instead of, I won't be happy until I achieve X.
That's right. Yeah, being able to hold two things at once that maybe are currently incompatible, that they can both happen. And why be unhappy with where you're at today, looking on into something that you want in the future?
Yeah. And I bet you can run into that a lot in the financial industry.
Absolutely. Maybe a quick informal commercial is that we do focus on what are the values of our clients, how do they interact with money? How does the couple interact with money together? How do they see things differently and the same? What's their current comfort level in different areas? And really have a conversation about, hey, what is most important here? What are your guys' objectives for you, for your family? And let's start there. And let's start with your purpose. Let's start with essentially why. What's the point of all of this? Because money is just a tool.
Yep.
And so often it gets held up as this, just way more than it is. And you got to have money to do stuff. That's one thing. You have to have enough money to do stuff, but you don't need this endless supply, because guess what? We die.
Right.
We're at the end of the game, we're all dead. And I believe there's something beyond that, but still money's not good there. Gold is pavement kind of stuff.
Yep.
But yeah, let's not, and I coach clients, especially when they're doing possibly too good of a job of saving. They're maybe cutting down lifestyle today when they have kids at home. And I'm like, you know what? You can afford to have experiences at this stage of life that you're never going to get again. And
so good.
Go do that. Don't borrow against these experiences today for money you don't need in the future.
Yeah.
That's a net cost to your family, even though you're going to have more money on paper. If you're not going to spend it and you're not going to have, you can't get this time of life back ever. And so as we go through different stages of life and there's major things that come up, sometimes it's outside of our control. Things are more or less taken, but we can reframe that to that's part of our journey. Yeah. And there's a purpose for that, and there's a reason for that happening. But at the end of the day, let's start with, okay, what are we shooting for here? And then figure out if we're on target, what we need to change, or maybe how we need to look at it differently to get there. Because I have a client that they want to go super fast on Bonneville Flats, and I'm like, can you afford that? And they're like, well, no, we can't afford it. Well, that's their 30-year ago self looking at that cost of that, saying I can't afford it. Mm-hmm. And I said, okay, how much would a race car cost to go do that in a relatively affordable way? Oh, $25,000, $30,000. I'm like, oh, let's put it in the planning software. Boop.
Yeah.
Oh, it didn't, you can't even tell how the graph changed. Like, you go do it.
Yeah. Yeah. And what freedom, right? To be able for that client to come in here with the mindset of that dream is unattainable, for you to be able to pull it out and show them, okay, where you are today, you can make this happen and still have the financial future that you're looking for.
Absolutely.
I mean, what a gift.
Yeah. And it's a gift of freedom. And at the end of the day, I still live with, I can show clients options, but it's up to them to do it. Mm-hmm. I can't go buy the race car for them.
Right. Well, and that, kind of goes back to entrepreneurship. You can set your schedule up to look any way you want, but if you don't hold those boundaries for yourself, or you stay up until 2 a.m. working every night because you just have that passion and energy and you're not taking care of yourself and your sleep, it's like
Yeah. Then everybody else starts paying too. You're
Exactly.
grumpy and
Yeah.
yeah.
So it's similar concept. I do the same with sort of time freedom. So I've got 2 young kids, a 5-year-old boy in kindergarten just wrapping up tomorrow, and then a 3-year-old boy. And I know I'll never get this time back. Right now we live in College Hill and I get to walk my 5-year-old to school every morning.
Cool.
And that's something I do. So my workday starts at 9 a.m. once he's in school. And it's just that thought of, 3 years ago thinking, oh my gosh, I don't start work until 9 a.m. That's crazy. But knowing that, listen, the kid already wants me to like stand behind the fence when he walks up to his little kindergarten classroom. Like it will come sooner than not where he can walk himself to school. And, I'll want to encourage that independence and autonomy. And so these are precious. This is a precious time too. So I think for me and having full health, it is looking at my family's life and how I want to show up as a parent and also how I want to show up as a business owner and just integrating those two and just giving myself permission.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter who starts at 7 a.m. If I need to start at 9 a.m. to walk my kindergartner to school and that's a value and a priority to me, then only I can hold myself accountable to do that.
Absolutely. I used to get up and like I was doing the get up at 5, go work out, be at the office by like 7:30, and then like laugh at everybody else who's walking in later. I was doing that and it was exhausting for quite a while. And today, I worked out this morning from like 8:15. I was out by 9, which is actually kind of sometimes early. Like a lot of times I'm really not getting out of there till like 9:30. And that's okay because like I can take phone calls while I'm working out. I can call people while I'm doing cardio or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't have to sit there and fall into the trap of comparison.
Yep.
Because comparison is the thief of joy.
Yes.
And really, it's like, that might work for you, but it doesn't mean that that's what I have to do to work for me.
Agreed.
And that's so cool to hear that you're comfortable with that life freedom and how you can pour back into your kids in this stage. Because there is that, like I grew up with, I know this podcast isn't about me. You're the guest, but
no, it's a conversation.
It is. So I grew up like my grandpa, super hard worker. This is kind of funny. Like he's 90. He turned 90 in November, and he got remarried after my grandma died. But see, this was even like 2 or 3 years ago. He had Kleinel out there helping him pour the front sidewalk pad.
You're like, Grandpa, you can.
She was not happy. It was like the middle of summer. He's got her out there doing flat work.
Oh my God. Oh, but, just that visual is so sweet.
Right. And he didn't.
And hilarious.
He didn't wind up face down in the concrete, amazingly.
Right.
Like, yeah. So anyways, they're still married, which is fantastic.
Good.
They're working through their things. But yeah, she came, her husband who passed was like pampered her. And so this is a bit of
so funny.
I'm airing a little bit of dirty laundry.
Yeah.
Maybe I shouldn't. But like he was the mayor out in Goddard, 30 years ago now. And but like he was a builder, always super hard worker. My dad's a super hard worker. And so like I grew up in that culture and I still had to have that, like definitely I still have to have that mindset. But there was a period where I had to go through like, okay, I'm going to let go of like, how like this like I've got to outwork everything.
Yes.
To like, okay, what makes sense? What works here?
Yep.
What is the right thing for me to do today? It doesn't mean I have to do everything today.
Yep.
But what is the right thing to do today?
Well, I think it's just so cool that you're taking the part of that works for you, that serves you, that works in 2022 for a business owner. You're taking the part of that and keeping it, but you're also saying, okay, I don't have to follow that playbook. And I can relate. My number one mentor is my dad, and he's a serial entrepreneur. But he did things a certain way as he was coming up, and he was the husband back in the 90s and the father, and that's different than it is today. Family was more, you took care of your family by working hard, right? Mm-hmm. Versus, the time thing. And that's a whole long story I could get into, but today it can look different, right? Even though my mentor, who I love and follow and just really appreciate all of his advice, the way he did it doesn't have to be the way I do it, and just embracing that. And honestly, that was a click for me a few years ago. I really thought I did have to do it that way. So kind of like you mentioned, like getting up at 5 a.m. and getting the workout in and being here by 7. That can work. Or if it's not working, it can also work another way. Just having that creativity to say, I can hold this life the way I want to, and I can do it on my own, and I can follow the people who've come before me, but I can make it my own.
Mm-hmm.
And not looking around. I think that's one of the hardest things today, especially with social media, not looking around at the way other people are doing things and feeling like you're not doing enough or you're not doing it right. That's a real, I think, mental battle that almost all of us have to fight.
Right. Yeah. And, again, this isn't an Enneagram podcast, but like our culture is a type 3. Like
yes.
it's like,
if you had to say, what is America? It is type 3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
High
Achiever.
reward, achiever, recognition, and you only have that in competition. So comparison is so prolific of like looking over like, am I doing more than him? Am I doing more than her?
Do I have more?
How do I stack up?
Yep.
What external factors prove that I stack up, that I'm worth something?
Yeah.
And but yeah, that is one of 9 main different ways of looking at something.
Yep.
But that's that's our culture.
Mm-hmm.
And but it's good to realize that, okay, this may be how a lot of people look at things, but I don't have to look at it that way.
Yep. And such freedom, and just taking that burden off of us to look at things culturally or the way that we feel like other people do. It's just such a freedom to just say, I'm good with this. This works for me.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like calling out when we have things maybe we haven't dealt with on the inside that are actually controlling us because we haven't dealt with them.
Yeah.
But calling that out and just coming to terms with, hey, this is affecting how I live, and without acknowledging it, you can't deal with it. And as long as you don't acknowledge it, it's still got power over you.
Yep.
So I guess this kind of turned into more of a psychological talk. But yeah, and I do a lot of work and reading in that space, because at the end of the day, with how we deal with money, it is psychological. And
have you read The Psychology of Money by chance?
Yes, that's a good book.
I really like that book too.
Yeah.
It basically said you can do it any way. I mean, it really fits in alignment with what you're doing here. You can do money almost any way you want and make it work well for you.
I don't remember that part, but sure.
That was my overall.
That was your, okay.
There's so many routes. You have to figure out what you want.
Yeah.
And set that up.
Yeah. Yeah. And also it does get into, I think, some of the psychological pitfalls with dysfunction of money and all that kind of stuff that it calls out. What was the one about the guy that was like flipping gold coins into the ocean or something? Or
I don't remember that one, but I remember the lottery one stuck out to me, like the logic behind buying lottery tickets, and how you can, the author just related to, like, you can, even though you don't agree with the logic, you can see how,
yeah,
yeah,
how it's a trap for, this is a path to being wealthy, but then also it's kind of like, if you have somebody that doesn't mow their own lawn, and then you want to hand them a high loader, like giant piece of equipment to go operate, it's like, is that going to go well? Maybe, maybe not. Whatever's going to happen is going to happen really fast, though. And so, yeah, but you give somebody like a lot of ability without any training and without being used to that. And we see that play out time and time again, where it doesn't often end well. A lot of times they wind up bankrupt, because money management is better done incrementally, not from 0 to a million, multi-millions.
Right.
So
yeah, but that was a good book.
It was a good book. I guess I should probably go review it. I think I read it a year to 2 years ago, but I love Audible, and I have like, I think 200 Audible books now or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like Audible a lot too, but I found that with professional development books or just growth books, I like to read them because I take a ton of notes and I highlight. So I go through my growth books, growth-minded professional development books, much slower when I'm listening to them. So, yeah.
And that's good too, but I'm a worse driver when I'm actually reading than listening.
Yeah, you do a lot of listening when you drive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And working out and
Yeah.
so it works, you know.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and it's a good way to hit your number. I'm always trying to hit at least 24 books a year, and I only hit 20.
Oh, we'll get on Audible.
I'm a slow I'm like a deep thinking, want to like process what I'm reading.
I'm the opposite.
Type person.
Well, it's not that I don't process, it's that I turn it up to like 2 or 2.5 speed and I
How funny.
I crush through it really fast.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you think back on, and now we're just apparently talking, but if you think back on when you're reading something, how much do you really take in? And maybe that's why you go slow, because I take in more probably big picture points, and there are things that'll hit me really good, and I'll stop and like bookmark it and like maybe play over it a few times and really take it in.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, a lot of times for me, it's honestly I do volume. I do it by volume, and then if I really like a book, I'll go through it many times. There's a few books I've probably gone through 10 times.
Yeah.
But I could never sit down and read a book 10 times over.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
But like listening to it's different.
Okay, there is a book I've read twice. I'm not a rereader of books because I go slow and underline, like we just talked about, process. But I've read The Alchemist twice. Have you read that by Paul Celio? I might be butchering his name.
I have not.
It's just a really good, I think it's more of like a parable, but it's a quick read and just really, I don't know. It hit me in the right time. A friend gave it to me as I was moving from Honolulu home to Wichita. And so
What's that one about?
The Alchemist is about a young shepherd, keeper of sheep on his journey. And his journey, what it looks like at the very beginning is not at all what it looks like in the end. And a ton of stuff about self-trust and, you know, just following guidance in your, like the external guidance in your life. And yeah.
Cool.
It's a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
The Alchemist.
I may have to check that out.
Oprah gets behind it. So if you need that extra incentive.
Oprah's behind it?
Oprah's behind this book.
Oh,
yes.
okay.
So she's a fan.
Well, good. She's big in the circles I run in. You know?
Yeah.
She's on TV and everything. Is she still on TV?
You know, I mostly listen to her via podcast now. I don't know if she's on TV, but I think she's got this new course that you can do, like a Oprah Life course, which, I mean, that has to be the ultimate, right? It's Oprah.
It must be. I mean, what else could it be?
I know. Yeah.
Good.
We digress.
Okay, so real quick, what about your business? So you started your business, you're growing it. Tell me about maybe a surprise that you came up against that you had to work through with growing, or maybe it's smooth sailing at this point.
You know, honestly, the surprise was just the overwhelming amount of support from the beginning. That has been something I'm just crazy grateful for. I dreamed much smaller when I started this business, and just unlocking bigger dreams, you know, having friends and mentors pour into me to help unlock the bigger dreams I have was probably a huge surprise up front.
Okay.
I mean, what a good surprise, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So as far as challenges, I mean, you know, just continuously unlocking streams of revenue is a fun challenge that we're tackling. I just made my first full-time hire. So I have a full-time team member on board and another part-time team member. So that's just been a really fun growth. Doing it with someone else is a lot more fun than, you know, manning the ship solo. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's tough. Yeah, I didn't like that part of my business.
Did you start solo too?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was me for the first year until I was just so like pulling my hair out with paperwork.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, I have to get help somehow.
Yep. Yeah. That was me too. I did the first year myself, then hired part-time, and then just last month hired full-time.
I'm not wired for administration or operations. I'm on the leadership vision side, and you know, I'm not really good at sales, but I can kind of dip into that a little bit. I'm not naturally wired for that. But yeah, definitely the vision and strategy.
That's where I sit too. And then the person I hired had a long 13-year career at a major corporation in town, and she was an HR leader there. So she's very operations and details. And if you've read the book Rocket Fuel, like visionary, integrator, and executor, now I have that. And so I'm like, oh, so excited for where we're going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, good deal.
Yeah.
I'm excited to hear how your business continues to grow, and as you might hit new or like different stages of growth, or if you're going to kind of cruise where you're at and that's a good like lifestyle business, or I don't know. Well, you said you're opening up to new markets. So
yep, we've got some conversations happening in new markets next month. So that's the vision, and that's sort of the trajectory we're on right now. And again, like who knows what it'll look like at year 5? Isn't that the exciting part?
Yeah, there's a lot of women out there.
There
you
are.
know, your model might really take off.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah,
I look forward to seeing that.
well, thanks.
Well, good deal. Any kind of closing thoughts, or how would or anything else you want to share?
You know, just in terms of life hacks, I've got a really good one.
Oh, okay, good.
So this is for women, though. Do you have a lot of women listening to the podcast?
Probably not enough.
Okay, so
but you know, there's a dude on here, so maybe they're not going to listen to. Actually, I think you're the third woman that's.
I'm the
been
third. I counted.
Okay.
Okay, so I'll give maybe just 3 life hacks that would be
good.
more relevant to your demographic.
Oh, do women? We want women on like listening? This is for everybody.
I agree.
Yeah.
So here's what I do for my clothing.
Okay.
I use a service called Rent the Runway, and this was a female-founded business, and people use it a lot for special events, weddings, graduation, stuff like that. But I use it for every day, and so it's about $150 a month. You get 8 new pieces. They're all designer pieces. You pick them.
Wow.
And so what I do is I just have that budget of about, what is that about? It's less than $1,500 a year. And that's sort of my clothing budget. And then I buy staples in every season, but usually shop at places like Target for just easy, cute tennis shoes or anything, kind of new that I want for the season. So that's just a way that I can show up to all the different appearances and events and feel my best and look really put together, but don't have to spend a ton of time shopping or investing in high quality pieces. So that has been like my most genius hack that I feel like every friend of mine is like, where do you get your dresses?
Yeah, I think Maria mentioned that once.
Did she? I probably told her about it.
Probably.
Because I really am obsessed with it. I started doing it when I was pregnant in Hawaii with my second, and I had pregnant clothes for Colorado from my first. So I had to figure something out.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's a good life hack.
Okay.
And it just kind of goes to the...
Do they have it for men or just for women?
I know that. I think it's just for women. Certainly there's a male service out there. But what I love about it is you just don't think. You just look at your calendar for the next 2 weeks. You get on your little app. You order what you want to wear throughout the next 2 weeks, and they ship it back super easy. And you just do that twice a month. So you literally don't have to think about what you're going to wear other than those 2 times.
Wow.
Yeah. And then you just mix and match and wear
What a
them in
time
different
saver.
ways. Seriously, it really is. I mean, I'm just so obsessed with this hack. Another thing is figuring out, I don't know what works for you in workout, but obviously physical fitness is a huge part of just staying mentally healthy and healthy in every way. For me, I really figured out that booking a class at a place like Pure Barre or Orange Theory or Body Bar, some place where you have to have a commitment, and if you cancel, you pay, that accountability works really well for me.
Do you do Pure Barre?
Right now I do Orange Theory.
Okay.
Yep. So I've been doing that since November, and I did it in Hawaii too. So I'm back there, and I kind of bounce around to the different.
I don't do Pure Barre. I was just curious.
Yeah, no, I don't. I don't right now.
There's women there.
There
mostly
are some men. There really are
I
some
know
men.
there are some men.
But no, I do Orange Theory right now.
Okay.
But what I love about that is I figured out that in order for me to actually get my workouts in and not put them last and not say, oh, well, something came up, is to book them with a company that will charge me if I don't show up.
Oh, I didn't know Orange Theory did that. That's interesting.
And Pure Barre, a lot of the boutique gyms, I'm not sure what Body Bar does, but a lot of the smaller gyms will do that because they have a certain amount of spots that can fit in class.
Mm-hmm.
So for their business model, it makes sense. But for me personally, I found I love that because that actually gets me to 100% show up.
Right. Yeah.
So that's another life hack. Just kind of figure out how to fit those important things in, like whatever's important to you. If exercise is important to you, figure out like the motivation behind what will actually make you show up for that. Whether that is, I set my clothes out the night before and I go first thing in the morning before I can think, or whether like for me, I don't work out first thing in the morning. I work out before I pick my kids up from school. So it's booking that class and just saying, okay, I've got to leave by 2:45 or I'm going to be charged.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Those are good.
Thanks. And then I think just letting go of anything that's not working in this season of life, just giving yourself that permission to be in the season that you're in. So going back to the workout thing, if 5 a.m. workouts don't work for you because you have little kids at home or you answer your emails at night, let yourself work out when you can work out, and don't, hold yourself to old patterns in old life stages that may have worked for you then.
Right. What may have worked before may make you stuck today.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. Right on. Well, Audra, how would other women, or are you guys accepting new people, new women?
So our next cohort opens in July. So we'll have applications ready in July for the cohort that starts in October. And so you can find us at the thread WLC for Women's Leadership Collective.com. So the thread WLC.com on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook. And we are looking for, cohort 4 members. We're also looking for organizations that have a diversity, equity, and inclusion initiative that want to support our mission and help us become more financially sustainable. And we're also looking for partners in different markets.
Very cool.
Yep.
All right. Well, thanks for sharing some of your life with us today, and life hacks and the thread and being a healthy member of our community.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me.
All right. Well, that'll do it for today. This is Real Wealth Podcast, sponsored by Leading Edge Financial Planning. Leading Edge Financial Planning helps. We're here to help folks make wise financial decisions, and Real Wealth is here to help us live the best life possible with the time we have left. All right. Thanks.